Hey, everybody. Mike Griffith here. Welcome to tonight's Ingles on the Beat segment. On remote tonight from parts in Athens. And, wow, it's been such a busy time for Georgia athletics. I mean, this isn't supposed to be a busy time, right? I mean, football news in June. Welcome to the new football world where guys can transfer, they can change their mind. The transfer portal, the recruiting, the commitments. I guess if you're a fan, there's kind of a good news, bad news, right? I mean, because you're plugged in. It's exciting to be getting new players this late in the year. Typically, used to be signing day would come in February and that was it, right? But now, recruiting continues to go on, it seems, with the transfer portal, guys going in, guys going out. I guess the big news of the day, and I'll start with that, is the five-star Big Bear Alexander, the player out of Texas, the guy that Jeff Sentel, for us with Sentel's Intel, has told you a lot about Bear, a guy that, really seemed to be into Georgia. But then he had to visit at Texas A&M, and he's backed off his commitment. Clearly, he wants to go more places and see more things. I think what's hard about it is that he seemed like such a hard commitment and such a sure thing. And when you've got a five-star like that in your class, it certainly does seem to attract others. Georgia's still ranked number one in the 24/7 composite team rankings for the 2022 class. Those things matter, that momentum. So I think Kirby Smart and his staff will do great things. And I know just from being out in California and, the last couple Monday nights, you've seen me interview Clay Helton from USC. The USC head coach was last week's show, and we talked about JT Daniels and his situation there and how he came to end up leaving USC and coming to Georgia. And then the week before that, we talked with JT's high school coach, Bruce Rollinson, about what JT did in high school and about Southern California high school. But a message that I wasn't able to share that I think you might want to know is, in talking with a lot of these other kids in California, the brand that Georgia has never been stronger. The kids have such a fascination and an interest of wanting to come and see Georgia. Ernest Green, I've written a couple articles about him, the best lineman in the state of California, will be coming here for an unofficial visit later this month. And there could be even more. And so there's a lot of momentum. DJU, the quarterback for Clemson, his dad was on the Georgia campus yesterday with his other son, Mateo, defensive end, tight end, as well as one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the 2023 class. And he's here on the Georgia campus in Athens, wanting to tour the facility, wanting to see the football building. And Clemson fans pretty much lost their mind when they saw the quarterback's dad posing for a picture with Kirby Smart. It'd be like if you saw JT Daniels' dad on the campus at Clemson, right? You'd be like, hey, what's up with that? So the Georgia momentum right now and the brand is really strong. I got asked about Georgia, obviously, today. I went on the Feinbaum show. Paul called me up and wanted to know what I thought about Georgia's chances. And, the reality of it is Georgia has evolved into a program that's an annual championship contender. Now, some other people and other programs like to point and say, oh, look at this, another offseason championship for Georgia, another wait till next year. There's not many programs that are truly annual national championship contenders. Clemson, perhaps, because they're in the ACC. Ohio State, because they're the best of the Big Ten. But in the SEC, you got to slug it out. And I think Georgia's in a place, and I know last year Florida won that game, but there were some extenuating circumstances, right? Richard LeCounte, the motorcycle accident, the players that were injured the week before against Kentucky, the fact that Florida had been off 2 out of 3 weeks, the fact that your starting quarterback got injured when you were leading 14-0. A lot went into that Florida win. I believe Georgia's head and shoulders above Florida right now. And I don't necessarily see that gap closing as long as Kirby Smart is running this program. The way that Georgia was able to stay up with the competition on the NIL, which starts July 1st, ensures that you're going to maintain your recruiting momentum. That's leadership. I had an opportunity to hear Houston Gaines speak, and he did a lot, for that bill. And so there's a lot of great leadership in Georgia right now that's moving the program in the right direction. So I know if you're a Georgia fan, you're kind of freaking out over the Barry Alexander, Brandon Turnage news last night. Let me talk about that a little bit. So Turnage is the transfer from Alabama that was brought in to compete at corner. Obviously, Georgia's also brought in Darian Kendrick, former All-ACC pick from Clemson. If you ask me to handicap it today, I would say that Jalen Kimber is probably cornerback one. And then I see Kendrick and Amir Speed being the other two guys. And I say the other team, I say, wait a minute, they only got two guys. Well, Georgia rotates three corners, and Keely Ringo's pressing. And I think Brandon Turnage is somewhere in that mix. And you may have saw Georgia offered another cornerback in the transfer portal, a graduate student from Tulsa. Guy's got NFL upside. And, Kirby's gonna, he said in the spring that he was going to address that position. And, word is that, Turnage probably didn't like that, or, geez, I thought you were bringing me in. But, hey, look, when you come to Georgia, you're going to compete, and you got to know that nothing's going to be handed to you. Nothing's going to be promised. And I think that's probably, for someone that was in the portal, thought they were, going to put themselves in a better competitive position. Then you find out there's more competition coming. All you can say is get better. And, I think there's some thought going on with that. And we'll see. From my understanding, Turnage still with the program at this point. But this is one of those things you watch. This is new, right? The transfer portal, this is new. And it's going to take a while to iron out all the unintended consequences. On the one hand, it gives these student athletes an opportunity to pursue better opportunities, better situations. But on the other, there's some team management issues that coaches have to address. And I think what they really need is, like the NFL has like a free agent window. I think you need to see that in college sports as well. So just from a program management standpoint, and so the players can adjust their expectations as well. So really pleased to join you on this Monday night. Now, the second half of the show, Mary Wilson Avant. I interviewed Mary Wilson, and obviously Mary is a softball star. She literally pitched Georgia to the Women's College World Series. And in softball, the pitcher is really 90% of it. I'm not exaggerating. I mean, it's everything. And Mary Wilson Avant with the back-to-back shutouts in Florida. I mean, this is amazing. But above and beyond her performance, when I talk with her and when I look at her list of accomplishments, going back to Macon, going back to the Stratford Academy where she went to high school, going back to her track career where she won state championships in the discus, looking at her academic career, looking at how she represents, it's not just what she did in the circle, it's how she did it. And it's the way she carries herself. And it's the future that she has. She's a marketing major from the Terry College of Business. She's going to Manhattan. I joked with her that, only because Tokyo didn't call. I mean, this is a young woman who is headed for huge things. And I really, really strongly recommend you watching the second half of the show where I interviewed Mary earlier today. I taped the interview. I mean, she's just a rising star, and she's an ambassador that I think Georgia should really celebrate and really recognize, because she's headed out. Her career's over, 5-year career at Georgia, master's degree. But I'm telling you, I've covered college athletics a long time, and you just don't see this sort of leadership and poise at this stage very often. So, I congratulate Georgia. And certainly congratulate Mary Wilson Avant. A little bit of a surprise with Coach Lou Harris-Champer retiring after 21 years. Listen, softball is a big deal. It's a TV sport. I don't know if you know this, but softball gets better television ratings than NHL hockey. And Georgia is on the map, right? Georgia being in that Women's College World Series, that's an advertisement for your program. And the way that team competed, I was impressed. I know it didn't end the way you wanted against Oklahoma. Oklahoma's a powerhouse. I mean, and I said this today on SEC Network. I mean, the fact that they're playing this tournament annually in Oklahoma City, and I've been out there 5 times, they're 26 miles from the Oklahoma campus, 26 miles. I said, could you imagine if they played the national championship in football in Birmingham, Alabama? Or what if they played the national championship in college basketball in Raleigh, North Carolina, right by Durham? Or Chapel Hill. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And it's not a knock against Oklahoma City, because you see the new stadium, expanded stadium now. They're holding 13,000, and that's a lot for a softball game. And they do a great job in Oklahoma City. I want to be clear on that. I think they do an outstanding job. And I suggested on Twitter, maybe they should take a look at moving it around because softball is such a great sport and it continues to grow. It's a fast sport. It's very, it's condensed in terms of the time element with 7 innings. The girls are so skilled. You've seen that, how fast it moves. Many people prefer watching it to baseball, which is a little slower moving. And I just suggested moving it around. And my goodness, you would have thought the state of Oklahoma wanted me to redraw their state borders or something. They were furious. They were angry. But I do think that Georgia was in an extreme competitive disadvantage playing Oklahoma State and Oklahoma State being 64 miles away. That's just tough. So a tip of the cap to the Georgia softball program for their incredible run. It was an unlikely story. They'd lost their last 7 regular season games. They'd finished 11th out of 13 teams in the regular season. And yet they have this incredible postseason run, winning their regional, knocking out Duke, a national seed, and then going down to Florida and pretty much shocking the world. Although, Mary Wilson Avant beat Florida during the regular season as well, but she shut them out twice in a row. And I'm telling you, that's legendary stuff. So, you just can't say enough about the direction of the softball program. And now with Coach Champa retiring, be real interesting to see what direction they go with the head coach. But I think this is a program that Georgia fans are going to embrace more, that's going to grow, and that I think will continue to be an annual championship contender. So something to watch for. Baseball obviously didn't end the way a lot of people wanted. Kind of hard for Georgia to sit back and watch LSU play. When you say, gosh, beat those guys head to head. Georgia was the 8th seed. LSU was the 9th seed in the SEC tournament. You beat them head to head and LSU gets in. Look, sometimes politics wins out. A lot of people point to LSU having a better RPI, but I think it had to do with the power that LSU has. I mean, they're the Yankees of college baseball, and their coach Paul Mainieri retiring. I think sometimes the storyline gets in the way and Georgia got left out. But, with football coming up, I'm telling you, there's a lot of excitement. Eric Gilbert being on the roster now, Darian Kendrick, these were 2 need positions. Gilbert, I think, is going to play the X. He's not George Pickens, but he's a pretty special player in his own right. I think he can do some different things. And I think this is going to be a go-to guy for Georgia, a downfield target that can really take a lot of attention away and open things up for Jermaine Burton on the other side of the formation, who's at the Z position. And your tight ends, you still have Darnell Washington and John Fitzpatrick and Brock Bowers. Certainly your backs out of the backfield. I mean, this offense is so incredible. And someone asked me the other day, they said, what's the big question right now for Georgia football? And I said, the big question is, does Kirby really cut it loose? Does he really turn Todd Monken completely loose? And I think the answer is yes, based on everything that I'm hearing. And your tight ends, you still have Darnell Washington and John Fitzpatrick and Brock Bowers. Certainly your backs. There we go. Apologize for that. I wanted to start out live because I wanted to see if you guys had any questions for me before I played the taped interview with Mary Wilson Avant. Again, really strongly suggest you watch that. Really enjoying that. Joseph Kennedy says that Turnage needs to stay. From a number standpoint, he certainly does, but he needs to stay with a competitive mindset. And certainly, and needs to stay in a way that he doesn't miss any workouts. That's going to be really important. What else we got here? What other questions do you have for me? Good to see Jerry Popham in here again, and Tennille is back. What do we got here? Joseph mentioned Lady Dogs didn't belong in the tournament. Well, they belonged in the tournament. They probably didn't deserve to host, but that was Josh Brooks with an aggressive bid. And here's something I picked up on. The softball team doesn't go by Lady Dogs. They're just the Bulldogs. I think the basketball team might go by Lady Dogs. So that's kind of interesting. What do we got here? Moose. Moose. I do every now and then I appear on the SEC network and give opinions and things like that. So people asking questions, just going through my timeline of questions here. Joseph Kennedy, bring back Dave Perno. I think that Scott Strickland has it going in the right direction. I know this year didn't work out, but sometimes you got to look at the extenuating circumstances. Injuries are real. Injuries are a factor. They're not excuses. But in the case of Georgia baseball, you lost 3 pitchers early on. That was damaging. At the end of the year, your best hitter was out. Sometimes it happens like that. I still go back to the 2018 SEC championship game. And I still say to this day, if DeAndre Walker doesn't get injured, Georgia beats Alabama, right? You remember that game? That was when Brenton Cox came in and they had some issues with containment on Mr. Hurts. So sometimes Georgia, has had some bad luck of late. That's a big part of it. It happens to everybody. Injuries are part of the game, but when they do happen, you've got to put it into perspective and you got to stay realistic about it. The good news is all your programs are so doggone strong. It seems like you're right on the verge. And I've said this earlier tonight. I was speaking to some people. I said, this football program and really a lot of programs, what I'm sensing here, Georgia has always been, like I said, B plus, pretty good at everything. But with Kirby, you've got a championship coach. I think with Josh Brooks, new leadership, very aggressive. I think Georgia athletics is about to go on to another level. I see a stronger leadership, and I see a deeper level of commitment to championships. Right. I think Georgia fans and Georgia administrators, Georgia coaches, they've been pretty good to really good for a long time. And I think they're tired of pretty good to really good. I think they're ready for championships. And that's kind of what I sense, the direction from the leadership. It's what I sense when I look at the state's resources, how they're being used, the facility upgrades, improvements, the $200 million that have gone into facility upgrades for football, or $170 million under Kirby Smart just in the last 5 years. That stuff adds up. Okay. And I think you're on the right track. So what else we got here? Joel Moody points out that Georgia football did offer the cornerback Caleb Evans from Tulsa. That's not related to Turnage, just so you know. One doesn't have anything to do with the other in the sense of Turnage knew that they were going to make this offer, but they didn't make that offer because Turnage was supposedly leaving or had talked to his high school coach about it. I saw that Mark Weiser, the Athens Banner Herald, had talked to the high school coach and said that, hey, Turnage had some questions about what was going on. But the offer to the Tulsa corner doesn't have anything to do with that. Just so you know. What else we got, guys? Any other questions? Good to see William Perry in here. I know William likes those Friday night shows. I just run out of days in the week. It's, as I said, it's such a busy time. The road swing to California to talk to all those people, to talk to all those coaches, to get a perspective on where JT is from and what he's about. I said this earlier. I think JT Daniels is the closest thing to Eric Zier I've seen in a long time. And I hold Eric Zier in tremendous regard. I think Eric Zier is unbelievably underrated. I felt like his tenure at Georgia was underrated. When he left, Eric was the SEC's all-time leading passer. It's just Peyton Manning came along a couple years later and surpassed the mark. But watching Eric play and talking to him now, I consider him a true Georgia legend. I know he didn't win a championship, but his quarterback play was so outstanding. And I thought that was a really key time. Anytime a great coach, a longstanding coach like Coach Dooley leaves, I shouldn't say leaves because he was still here, but there's always going to be some drop off, especially when the coach sticks around, because the next guy really can't change things up as much as they like. There's kind of a restriction, like you're the head coach, but your boss is the former head coach. And I still think that Ray Goff was in a really difficult position. And yet Georgia maintained that level. They didn't drop off. Georgia hasn't had that massive drop off really ever. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. But I think Eric Zier is one of the most underrated color guys that I hear. I think he's a treasure. I think Georgia fans should I think Georgia ought to promote Eric Zier more in terms, really. I really like the way Eric does his broadcast, and his color is outstanding. Appreciate the compliment from William Perry on the California coverage. A little bit different. The way we did that, kind of a scramble drill, but I spent a lot of time with those coaches. I spent some time with the Bosco, St. John's Bosco coach, defensive coordinator, and he's visited Georgia and he's visited Clemson and he's visited Alabama. And I thought it was pretty fascinating that St. John's Bosco, the school where the Clemson quarterback went, they actually play SEC style defense. They play the same match zone that Kirby does. And their coach was telling me just how similar Georgia and Alabama's defense is in terms of this match zone and how unique it is. And he told me that Clemson had some aspects of it as well. They didn't play it as often, or they played it with different defensive fronts. But what registered right away is that, hey, Darian Kendrick, a guy coming in from Clemson, is going to have some familiarity, and that's why he's a little bit easier to plug in. Same thing with Brandon Turnage, presuming that he sticks around. So a lot to be excited about. Kirby was very selective with these guys, obviously, very well thought out. Can't say enough for the way Georgia is evolving right now and kind of rolling with these chances with NIL. Certainly the one-time transfer. It just looks like Georgia's staying at the front of the line and learning how to adjust and adapt to these rules. And that's everything, because things are going to change and you have to be able to modify and adjust. What did Josh Brooks say? Change is inevitable. Adjustment is optional, something to that effect. I need to get my Josh Brooks. He's only 40 years old, and I'm already trying to get my Josh Brooks quote down. He's already spouting out this wisdom, So I think your athletic director is something to really, really be excited about. I want to take a break now. And when we come back, I promise you that you're going to love the second half of this show. You're going to swell with pride when you see a former Georgia athlete that represents like Mary Wilson Avant did. Again, it's one of my favorite interviews. I know everybody, we all love to talk football. It's that time of year, and certainly we've covered those bases, and I cover those bases every day in print. But every now and then you run across another student athlete in another sport and you go, man, this is truly what it's all about. But before we get to the Mary Wilson Avant interview, I want to take a moment to recognize our sponsor, Ingles. I can't say enough for Ingles staying with me and our programming and making our show possible. Great appreciation, but more importantly, and on a bigger scale, was the way that Ingles supported all of us and supported all their customers at a time of need when we're going through that pandemic. And, you needed those frontline workers. I mean, I was out on an airplane and I'm in California and I'm around crowds, and I'm thinking it wasn't so long ago I was scared to just be in the same room with somebody. And yet still the folks at Ingles were there every day to serve us and to make sure that we had the supplies we needed to care for our families. So let's take a moment to recognize Ingles. And then I want you all to sit back, enjoy the second half of the show, and please make your comments. And if I'm wrong, you tell me, but I almost guarantee you, you're going to enjoy the second half of this show and be really proud of the type of student athletes that the University of Georgia is putting out. So now a moment for our sponsor at Ingles.
It's in our hearts to feel for real. There's been ups and downs, turnarounds, good days and some bad, but we stand together for worse and for better. We'll always have your back with open arms, heart to heart, hand in hand. Community strong.
Dear softball, playing this game over the last 18 years has been full of the highest highs, the lowest lows, and everything in between. You have been constant no matter what organization I am playing for or the circumstances that surround my life. You have taught me more about myself than I could ever imagine. You have shown me adversity through injuries, strife, and doubters, but you have allowed this to only fuel my fire. You have pushed me outside of my comfort zone, challenging me to broaden my experiences and understanding of the world around me. You have taught me that there is no substitute for discipline and hard work. You have taught me to look at failure and mistakes as an opportunity to learn. You have taught me to invest in others, just as others have done for me, whether giving my time, being present, or being a listening ear. You have introduced me to people from every part of the country, people that have made an impression on my life far greater than they could ever imagine, and people that have become friends for life. Thank you, softball, for being an escape, a safe haven, a game that has shaped who I am, presenting me with endless opportunities to grow each day. Thank you for teaching me to play for something bigger than myself, for showing me passion, sacrifice, and surrounding me with strong, independent women that I can look up to every day. Thank you for letting me live out my dream of playing on the greatest stage. Thank you for sticking with a little girl from Macon, Georgia, and preparing her for all that lies ahead in life. I'm forever grateful.
Well, hey, everybody, Mike Griffith here, and welcome to tonight's Ingles on the Beat show. Really pleased to bring on the show Mary Wilson Avant. She's the pitcher for the Georgia Bulldogs. I said she was the pitcher. Mary, your career is over with. Is it still hard to take in that after 5 years that you're really done?
Yeah, I don't know if it'll feel real until until a little bit of time passes. I think it'll sink in soon enough.
Yeah, it wasn't too long ago. Mary was in Oklahoma City, probably 13,000, 14,000 Oklahoma fans out of the 15,000 capacity rooting against her. How much of that do you hear as a pitcher? I got to think at some point it's just one loud buzz.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you start the game, you definitely hear more of it, but then you start to get in a little bit of like tunnel vision with it, and it's just you and your catcher and your defense behind you just duking it out.
Well, I know a lot of Georgia fans were proud of the Georgia Bulldogs for getting there this year. I mean, this was an up and down season, and yet this last week we watched Georgia face Oklahoma State. Man, that was a tough one, 3-2. One of those games that could have gone either way. Play at the plate, base running, some questionable calls by these umpires. Oklahoma State, 64 miles away, a partisan crowd. I guess I ask you what you take from this most recent World Series appearance.
Honestly, I just really wanted to go in there and have fun and just put everything on line. And I feel like I did that.
Oh, there's no question. Yeah, I mean, I think you threw every inning but one there. And, of course, you pitched Georgia into that World Series. And, you know, I called it a legendary performance last week, and I saw you kind of smile. But, I mean, really, you go into Gainesville in Super Regionals, and you shut out Florida, the number 4 team in the country, a team that's a perennial national championship contender in their new stadium, in their field. I mean, I guess I ask you, how did you pull all that together? Because in these days, shutouts are really hard to come by in fast pitch.
Honestly, it wasn't a thought that ever crossed my mind. I really trust the defense that I have behind me. So I was able to just throw very freely and trust my pitches more than ever, knowing that my defense was going to have my back, and then in turn my offense as well.
Well, you mentioned your pitches, and I know pitchers don't usually like to talk about them, but I think you're done pitch. I don't want to sell you short. Maybe there's a comeback in here somewhere, but I think your softball might be done for a little while at least. What were your go-to pitches? What did you have working for you in this postseason?
I think my drop was working better than it had all year during postseason, as well as my changeup. When my changeup's on and I'm keeping that low, that allows my other pitches to be more successful. So I'm able to kind of broaden the spectrum of what I'm able to do in the zone, around the zone, and stuff like that.
Yeah, changing speed's devastating. Folks that don't know a changeup, maybe the most important pitch in fast pitch. Batters can't settle in. They practice against those machines all the time. And, a lot of softball talk early on, but a lot of human interest from Mary as well. Certainly the Georgia softball program, Mary. Sunday, I was working on my follow-up story on the Georgia softball season. And, Sean sent the message that Coach Lou Harris-Champer was retiring. And I was a little caught off guard by that. 21 seasons for Coach, 5 Women's College World Series appearances. Certainly this team finished strong. A lot of young girls coming back next year. I think everyone really, but the pitching staff, or many of the pitchers. Were you surprised by that?
In the moment when she told us, I was really surprised. I definitely thought it was coming in the next year or two, or even a few more. But in the moment, I think it was a shock.
Yeah. I mean, you don't expect a coach coming off a World Series to make that announcement, but yet Tony Baldwin now has been announced as the interim. And, when I kind of checked around the SEC about the Georgia staff, they said, he could be a coach in waiting. He's a guy that I heard a lot of the players talk about when Georgia was finding their bats this season.
Yeah, Coach Tony would make absolutely an amazing head coach. He invests so much in his players on and off the field, and is just a great human in general, and just invest so much time, and he would be an amazing head coach.
What's ahead for Georgia softball, Mary? One of the things that surprised me when I came down here to cover Georgia athletics is, you've got a great stadium. It's free admission though, right? Other places you pay, and I'm looking at the talent on the field. And I'm thinking to myself, this is a team worth paying for. This is a perennial contender in the SEC, 3 World Series appearances in the last 5 years. I mean, that's really remarkable. What do you see for Georgia's softball as we move forward?
Yeah, obviously the free admission is a very unique thing for college softball, especially when it's on the rise and stuff. But this is such a young team and has so much talent coming in and continuing on with this team. And they're going to do great things in the next few years.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the expectation. I really do. I think that with all the talent in state, and you could probably speak to that more than myself. And, just kind of going back for folks that don't know, Mary's from Macon and played at the Stratford Academy. Of course, a 3.9 grade point average as well. Great student athlete, 3-sport athlete. We talked earlier about off camera about your discus championships and track, played some basketball, a couple state titles in softball, another appearance. But on that travel ball circuit, I got to ask you, I know you played for East Cobb. Just how competitive is the state, and what other regions did you compete against, going through high school?
Yeah, obviously, like Atlanta's a big hub for a lot of tournaments, a lot of travel ball teams, Texas, California. But honestly, it's the spectrum of talent is broadening to different states. People are traveling cross state to compete and stuff, and it's just the game is really advancing, and it's going to be fun to see where it goes in the next few years.
Yeah, I think Georgia's going to keep a lot of those players in state. They already do. In fact, some of the girls you competed against at the World Series were Georgia transfers. What was that like, going against a former teammate on Oklahoma State?
Yeah, honestly, it's fun. I mean, been friends with them and known them for so much longer than just college. So it's fun to get to play not only with them while they were at Georgia, but against them in the World Series on the biggest stage.
Yeah, it doesn't get any bigger than that. That's kind of a good news, bad news thing, I think, for the sport when I think about it. Obviously in baseball, a lot of the Georgia baseball players, I see Jonathan Cannon, maybe a top 100 draft pick. But for women, for young women, there's really not much more. I know there are some professional softball leagues, but it kind of seems like the Olympics it's kind of the Olympics or bust, isn't it? I mean, what else is really out there as far as softball after college?
Yeah, honestly, I think the pro softball could definitely benefit and expand more. I think they're already starting to do that. Kind of COVID, I guess, kickstarted that a little bit, but I think it could go places. But again, it's not that big right now, and the Olympics kind of is that next step for or a goal for a lot of people.
Yeah, like I said, and there's not many slots. I mean, there's just not much to go around, and so not that we need to worry about your future at all, Mary. You're a Terry School, a business graduate. Kind of interesting, you thought maybe your softball career was over with when the COVID thing happened. Take us through the steps of how you ended up in graduate school and playing another year with the Bulldogs.
Yeah, so after my junior year of college, I decided that I wanted to stay after my senior year and get my master's of marketing research. And so I took those steps to apply and get into the program, and then COVID hit, and I was granted with another opportunity to come back and play. And so it was a pretty easy decision because I was already going to be in Athens. I was already going to be in school still. And so I had that taken care of for me. And so to be able to come back and kind of redo my senior year, it was an easy decision to be able to take that opportunity.
Yeah, I liked what you said, this year. And I think it really had a lot to do with Georgia making the run. Because one of the more interesting aspects of this team was the up and down nature, right? I mean, this team finished the season going into the postseason on a 7-game losing streak and hosting a regional. Josh Brooks made a really aggressive bid for UGA to host a regional, and you guys knock out Duke. Duke's never been to the NCAA. They didn't know what they were getting into. You took care of business there, and then the Bats came around, and then to knock out the Florida Gators. I mean, that postseason run. Something's happening in the clubhouse there. I mean, what's going on to go from losing 7 in a row at the end of the regular season to win in 5 straight in the postseason to get to the World Series.
Yeah, I mean, it started in the fall and it continued when we got back in the spring and started facing that adversity, those up and downs throughout the season. We had to make sure that we stayed together and didn't start pointing fingers or letting our chemistry kind of fizzle out. And that's something that Coach Tony do a really great job of, is making sure that we are sticking together as a team, that we're investing in each other, even when it's hard. And that doesn't mean it's going to be perfect. It certainly was not. But we were able to find the positives in each of those low valleys and continue. Those were the things that would push us to continue working on those hard things, or the fundamentals, and just keep investing in each other. And that's kind of what was able to take us through that, losing streak at the end of the season into a strong postseason.
Yeah, I'll tell you, resiliency is amazing. Lacey Fincher said a lot of the same things you just said, almost verbatim. So, obviously this is a team that's really bought, saying it and doing it are two different things though, Mary. I mean, and a team, for those, I know many people are familiar with fast pitch softball, and those that know the sport well know just how much of the heartbeat the pitcher in that circle is. I mean, as great a pitcher as you are, you got to be a pretty good actress too, right? Because everybody's kind of looking to you as far as trying to feed off this mood, right?
Yeah. I mean, certainly it's something I worked on from freshman year on. I remember Coach when I was younger talking about, you come into college, your emotions are kind of all over the place. And when you're in the circle, when you're a leader on the field in the circle, regardless of if you want to be or not. And so that's something that Coach and I talked about a lot freshman and sophomore year, was just making sure you kind of have that even kill throughout every game, no matter how great something's going or how not great something is going. And so that's something that was definitely a work in progress throughout all 4 of my years, or 5, sorry.
Yeah, well, I'd say you're pretty sensational. I mean, the poise was unbelievable, and the cameras we didn't see you sweat, Mary. I can tell you that. We never saw you sweat. How much of this, we hear a lot about athletics being somewhat of a microcosm of life, and, you being a marketing major now, and how much of this carries over when we talk about the things you learn in athletics? How do you translate that into the business or the career that you have planned, and just life skills in general?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there's more transferable skills from athletics than I could count or even talk to you right now. Like, obviously, hard work and dedication and determination are big ones, but also one of the biggest ones that I was talking to someone about earlier is taking the positives from like failure and mistakes and being able to grow from those, and not just like letting them keep you down. That's something that like you can take into a new phase of life. For me, like, I'm moving to New York where I'm not going to have family. I don't have close friends. Like, I'm starting a brand new job in a different part of the country, So that kind of stuff is going to be able to kind of help me continue to grow. And then also like confidence, something that Coach has taught us through. I mean, she's shown us that we don't have to have, a great performance or someone speaking highly of us to feel confident in ourselves and believe in ourselves. And that's something that just goes way further than softball, or and just carries you through life. And so there are so many skills that you learn in softball that, or in college athletics in general, that go way further than the sport.
Just looking at your resume, Mary, talking about everything you accomplished in high school, the track, the discus state championships, the high school softball championships, playing basketball for your school, what you've done at Georgia over 5 years varsity in high school, 5 years. You're just that extra, right? Like, I'm thinking you chose Manhattan because Tokyo didn't call. Like, the biggest city, Mary Wilson Avant was going to, whatever it was. I mean, you were going for the biggest and the best. I mean, but seriously, how did you end up with a job? And I know the Terry School of Business is extremely well respected, one of the top 20 in the country, in fact. But how did you end up with the job, and what are you going to be doing in Manhattan?
Yeah, so I am going to be, my job title is a business analyst. So the company is a Australian-based market research firm. So it's kind of, my job will be kind of a mix between market research and consulting. But the Master of Marketing Research program that I did here at UGA is very highly recruited out of. And so a lot of companies come to us to interview us, and we don't have to go outside of our comfort zone, I guess, to find people to interview with. They come to us because they know that our program has such a high reputation. So very fortunate there that Forethought was one of the first companies that came and interviewed, and didn't know much about them when I started, but I really got along well with my boss in the first interview. And then obviously he felt the same about me. And so it just kind of worked. I never really saw myself going outside of the Southeast, to be completely honest. But it felt like it really just fell into place, and this is where I needed to be. So I'm going.
You like the challenge, Mary. Come on, you're not kidding anybody here. You like the challenge.
I do love a good challenge.
That's right. The Southern girl goes to New York. You're ready to knock them on their butts up there. Have you been to Australia before? Is that tie in at all to this job?
Yeah, so I went to Australia on a study abroad the summer after my junior year, and I actually went to a lot of different cities, but not Melbourne, where this company is based out of. So I do hopefully get to go back to Australia sometime soon to finish or to do some of my training. So I wouldn't say that it necessarily tied into me accepting this job, but it certainly is a fun thing that I get to do. And yeah, excited at the possibility to go back.
When does all this happen? I mean, like I said, we're fresh off the World Series appearance. How quickly does this transition occur?
Yeah, so I start my job actually July 6th.
Wow. And what's left for you in Athens? That gives you, I guess, a little less than a month, just a lot of goodbyes, a couple trips homes.
Yeah, I've already said a lot of goodbyes. That's been sad. Honestly, packing up my apartment, moving stuff, but honestly, just tying up a few loose ends, and I'm out of here.
Yeah, can't wait. I'll tell you, I can't wait to see what's next for you. I know we haven't heard and seen the last of you, Mary. I know that you're destined for great success. Again, your history and your track record, extremely impressive. I know you'll be a tremendous ambassador, not just for your family and your teammates, but for the University of Georgia and the Terry College of Business. I really want to thank you for coming on tonight. It's tough to, a lot of athletes, they lose a contest. You don't hear from them for a month. But boom, the fact that you're willing to come on, talk about your team, talk about your season. You left the diamond with your head held high with an incredible performance this season.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me.
You bet. Good luck, Mary.
Thank you.
How do you think we did?
I think it was good.
It was okay. We did all right. You got rolling there. With a little bit of that personality came out. See, when you always say the right things like you do, when people are careful like that, it was tough. It's tough to just jump into something like, what is this? I don't know. But I do think you did well. And I do think that it's great for the softball program to have someone represent, and it puts a face and a voice and in a college experience. I mean, people watching that got to be thinking, wow, I want my kid to go to Georgia. She studied abroad in Australia. She did Terry College of Business. She could have left. She came back for another year. Just you hit it out of the park. You really did. I appreciate it. And like I said, I wish you great success. I'm sure, again, I know I don't know if you'll go into politics or if you'll come back here, but I just know I haven't seen the last of you, man. Successful people like you. And I've seen a few of them. I'm pretty good at picking these out after covering college sports 30 years, but you're on to bigger and better things. So congratulations, and congrats to your family as well. Did an incredible job raising.
Thank you so much.
All right. Have a good one, Mary. Thank you.
You too. Bye.
Right. Bye-bye. I appreciate it. And like I said, I wish you great success. I'm sure, again, I don't know if you'll go into politics or if you'll come back here, but I just know I haven't seen the last of you, man. Successful people like you And I've seen a few of them. I'm pretty good at picking these out after covering college sports 30 years, but you're on to bigger and better things. So congratulations, and congrats to your family as well. Did an incredible job raising.
Thank you so much.
All right. Have a good one, Mary. Thank you.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye. Welcome back. Mike Griffith here. And obviously you saw my parting words with Mary after our interview. So you ever wonder what happens when we go off camera? That's what happens. And I meant everything that I said. She's that impressive. I'm glad that you folks stuck around and watched that interview. I watched the whole thing over again because I was impressed. And man, I go back now, I'm thinking, man, I should have asked her more insight. But, you know, we think so much about the scoreboard at Georgia that sometimes we forget about the mission statement to develop these players. And obviously Mary Wilson Avant is someone that the Georgia fans are going to be very proud of and what she accomplished, not just in the circle, but in life after. And it's not just softball, it's not just football, but for the Georgia fans that follow the school, you know, that mission statement, that student athlete part of it. And I know that that's harder and harder to recognize now, because all we see is ESPN or SEC Network and what's your win-loss record and where did this person get drafted and where do they stand in the record books. But at the end of the day, I think the true college fan, and it's okay if you didn't necessarily go to Georgia, doesn't mean you don't love Georgia still, but for many people that follow college sports, it's still watching the development of these student athletes over the course of their career as they grow into, great citizens, great business people, tomorrow's leaders. I mean, that's all legit. I'm a little worried with the one-time transfer portal that maybe you don't get a chance to see the development to the extent that we've seen across all sports, because a lot of sports is handling adversity. And that is a part of the growth process, right? So again, I want to thank Mary Wilson Avant for coming in. And this girl is 48 hours away from throwing at the Women's College World Series. And she pops on the Monday night show to talk to Georgia fans and represent her sport. And can't say enough about that. Certainly appreciate all the guests I've had, the coaches I've had on, Clay Helton, Bruce Rollinson, Sam Pittman, Shane Beamer. We've had a good run of interviews on these Monday nights, and I'll try to keep bringing that to you. And I appreciate that you all accept that this is a little different. It's not the same old. Try to bring different people on with different perspectives in season. I like to bring the opposing beat people on to talk about the other team, give you something a little different, a different slice, because you get me talking and writing about Georgia every single day. I'm doing the football stuff and, doing the radio appearances, whether it's in Athens, 8:00 on Monday mornings, whether it's in Atlanta at 8:20, whether it's on SEC Network on Sirius XM, but doing this show and introducing you to people like Mary Wilson Avant or Clay Helton, it's just a little different. And I know it took the audience to adapt a little bit, but man, I appreciate the support. I see the same names out there and the commentary. And of course, anytime you have a question, you all know you can contact me. You can put the messages in there. I see the direct messages on Twitter, and it really makes it fun to cover the University of Georgia. So I hope everyone has a great week, and I look forward to a lot more coverage. And thanks again to Ingles for bringing the show tonight.